Hello and welcome to the final session of the Hawaii State Veterans Summit. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Carlos. I am the chairperson for the summit, and I will be your host and moderator for today's session. Quick shout out to our sponsors: the Hawaii Veterans Foundation, the Office of the Office of Veteran Services for the state of Hawaii, and the AARP Hawaii. Without them, this could not be done. Few notes about your Zoom controls. The Q&A session or the Q&A tool is available to you. So when you have a question, feel free to submit it. I see one already submitted, so that's great. We will get into that shortly. Our guest today is Jessica Lynch. Jessica is a former private first class in the United States Army and a former prisoner of war. On March 23rd, 2003, she was injured and captured by Iraqi forces as her convoy moved through Nasiriyah in southern Iraq. She was rescued by U.S. forces after 9 days of captivity. She joins us today to share her story of recovery, resiliency, and perseverance. Hi, Jessica. Are you there with us?
Hey everyone. Oh,
How you doing? So normally, this would be the part where everybody gives a great round of applause, but of course, being on Zoom, you just have to settle for mine. So thank you for joining us. So
well,
Jessica,
thank you guys so much for having me. Carlos, again, it is such a pleasure.
well, thank you. So I got to ask, 18 years old, just out of high school where you were voted Miss Congeniality, uh, how does that translate into an enlistment in the United States Army?
Yeah, so actually, I had absolutely no plans of going into the military. I actually, from the time I was about 5 years old, I knew that I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher, just like my role model, my kindergarten teacher. So yeah, I mean, that was my plan, was to get in to this kind of local community college and go for elementary education all the way up until like the very end of graduating. And that summer, setting around 2001, my brother had just finished up his first year of college. So we were just kind of sitting there, and a recruiter came by to speak to us. So yeah, it all started from there. So the whole um, stories that they give everyone, about how you can go to college for free, you get to travel the world. Um, but the bonus obviously would be joining and getting to serve. But yeah, so that's kind of how it all started. Again, it was the summer of 2001, before September 11th had occurred. So yeah, we thought, if we went in, it would be kind of a peaceful serving. Yeah, and it didn't quite turn out that way.
Yeah, the timing of your enlistment is rather unique because you enlisted, like you said, prior to 9/11. However, you didn't report to basic training until after September 11th. So what you thought you had signed up for totally changed by the time you got into it. What was your mental thinking when that happened, and how everything had changed? That maybe what you signed up for is not initially what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, no one expects to, be sent to war, but knowing kind of the past, I mean, we watched Desert Storm, so I mean, obviously, we knew that it was a possibility. We just didn't know, and when I say we, my brother and myself, but we just didn't expect that it really kind of was going to happen as quickly as it did, kind of like everybody else. You know what I mean? Like the 9/11, obviously, when that occurred, everything changed for all of us. So yeah, I had actually enlisted July of 2001. Went on the delayed entry program, so I did not leave for basic until the week after September 11th had occurred.
So we just passed the 20th anniversary of your enlistment, right? A week ago, July 20th. So congratulations on that. So you reported to basic training at Fort Jackson. I'm sure that was a 9-week party, as most of us veterans know. Then you went to your advanced individual training at Fort Lee in the Quartermaster Corps. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
But then came your first duty station, which is always the fun part, at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas, where, as most single soldiers, they get placed in barracks and they have a roommate. So um, tell us about your roomie, Lori Payestoa.
Yes, my roomie. So yeah, actually, when I first had gotten to basic training, or sorry, Fort Bliss, um, everyone had kept telling me that, Lori was kind of this mean, rough, very, um, not pleasant soldier. And I thought, how bad could she really be? So yeah, so when I first met her, I was kind of going into the situation of, oh my, what did I just get myself into? But getting to know her, she was one of the kindest, most, gentle, sweetest women that I have ever met. She was a couple years older than I am. So she kind of took me under her wing of, helping me, guiding me through everything, especially those first few months when you get into your first active duty station, because, everything changes, everyone's new. Your comrades are everyone from all over the different world or all over. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I think knowing her was one of the best things that had ever happened to me. And I know people say that all the time, but honestly, um, just meeting her and, I'm sitting here looking at her pictures. So my eyes are going down toward the screen, but yeah, just
I think
she still puts a smile on my face and a tear in my eye every time that I get to talk about her.
I think this collection of pictures kind of describes what you said, right? She can be the mean person, that picture on the bottom left, where things have to be done a certain way, and if it's not, then things happen. But then you see that picture on the bottom right, and what a complete difference. And then I really love that picture on the top right, because that shows her smile and it shows her heritage, right? She was a Native American. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it right, but is it Hopi or Hopi? Hopi.
Yeah. So she grew up in flat or sorry in Arizona, Tuba City. Her family now live in Flagstaff, Arizona, but yeah, she grew up Hopi Indian on the reservation. So it was also neat for me to be able to experience, part of her culture, part of her family, her heritage, and um, I think that's just one of the greatest things about, you know, meeting your comrades. And, I know we have a couple of veterans in here, so they'll understand that. They get it, and they probably still have battle buddies that they love and adore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, after spending about a year at Fort Bliss, then came the wonderful news that your unit would be moving to the Middle East for a little while. And I guess in February of 2003, you moved to Kuwait in preparation for entering Iraq. And there for about a month, right? And then in March, the convoy began, and I believe on March 20th. And 3 days later, as I've been in several convoys myself, and I've never done a convoy that didn't have at least one U-turn. Unfortunately, yours had, from what I understand, more than one, and things did not go as planned. So um, I want to talk a lot about your recovery. So if you briefly can talk about March 2003 and how that all played out.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, okay. Yeah, so yeah, we were stationed, like you said, in Kuwait. So on March 20th of 2003 is then when President Bush declared war. So we packed up all of our belongings. We crossed the border into Iraq. The first day was basically selling. I mean, we were just following the rest of the convoy. Nothing, nothing too exciting, which is amazing when you say that nothing exciting happens. But yeah, I mean, it was just a kind of just a drive across the desert. By the second day is when things kind of was taking a little bit of a hit for us. I mean, we started to slow down. Some of our vehicles were getting kind of off track. And again, we are still with this long convoy. And basically they told us our mission was just to head north to Baghdad. And so we knew that much, but as we were traveling, part of my unit kept slowing down. We were getting just basically kind of off track, but yet it's kind of hard to explain without actually kind of visualizing it. So we were just kind of getting slower and slower than the rest of the convoy, even though that we were all still together, if that kind of makes sense. By that night, I mean, we had basically made the decision that part of us will stay behind, pull those slower vehicles with us, and the further vehicles, the ones up above, would stay with the rest of the convoy and continue to march forward. So anyone who knows, and Carlos, you're probably thinking in your head, why in the world would you cut your convoy in half like that? It was a huge mistake on our part to do that. Before people come at me, I was only a private. I had I've been hit so many times with, I guess people blaming me for that. So yeah, I mean, half of us continued on, half of us stayed behind. And at this point, so we're down to 33 soldiers and 17 vehicles. So actually it was a little more than half that continued on. By the morning of March 23rd, about 6 a.m., we finally are catching up. We see lights ahead of us. We think that it is the rest of the convoy, and we had caught up to them. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. It was actually the lights to the city of Nazareth. So when we got closer and we realized that, I mean, we had crossed this bridge and into the city of Nazareth, and that's kind of where we realized that we had made a mistake. So we pulled off to the side, trying to get our bearings straight. And to be honest, I remember this one white truck, without going into too much details because I know we're on a time crunch, but I remember this white truck that kept passing us. And eventually we were told afterwards that he was basically gathering intel on us, what kind of weapons we had, what vehicles, how many soldiers he could see.
Was Jessica, was this the infamous white pickup truck with red stripe that were all over Iraq?
Oh, this one, I think it was just plain white. I don't remember it having a red stripe, but it could have. But yes, very much so. Like, and I don't know, like kind of a Chevy S10 or a small Toyota, just a small kind of pickup. So yeah, so we continued on and made it about halfway into the city. And at that point, we noticed that, more and more Iraqis were coming outside to take a look to see what was happening. And by time my commander and first sergeant made the decision to turn around to get back out of that city, we were just basically surrounded by Iraqis on every side of us. And I kind of like to use the analogy of like, basically we were, ducks in the middle of a pond with nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, nowhere to escape, because again, at this point, they had surrounded us. So we quickly tried to make our way out of there. At this point, I am in the back seat of the Humvee with Lori driving, my first sergeant in the passenger seat, and then two soldiers that we had picked up. Um, so we were traveling as fast as our Humvee would allow us, and dodging bullets, and we took a hit to the right side of our vehicle by a rocket propelled grenade. And when that occurred, it caused Lori to lose control of the vehicle. And we actually ended up slamming into the back of an 18 wheeler, the bed of the truck that um, the truck had been disabled. The driver was shot, and then the passenger of that truck was actually later taken as a prisoner of war as well. But so when we crashed into the back of that pickup, or I mean the trailer bed, it caused Lori to hit her head off of the steering wheel and eventually die of head trauma. My first sergeant and the two men that were sitting in that Humvee with me were all shot and killed. For me, since I was in the middle and on the transmission hump, I actually, since I'm not in a seat, there was no seat in front of me to stop me from going forward. So when that we ended up hitting, my body flung forward, broke my back at the fourth and fifth lumbar, caused a head laceration. Basically, I had been knocked unconscious. So the Iraqis came around, determined who was KIA and who was still alive. They determined that, even though Lori was basically brain dead at that point, they noticed that her body was still fidgeting, moving. And even though that I was knocked unconscious, they noticed that I was still alive. So they took Lori and myself. Drug us across the street to one of Saddam's palaces where they stripped us of all of our military gear. And at that point, without getting too graphic, I guess, they took like metal pipes or like ball bat kind of objects and broke my um, tibia and my left leg and my left femur. My right foot was crushed, and then they actually snapped my right humerus bone. So after that, I was taken to Saddam General, and again, still unconscious at that point. But the Iraqis took me into surgery. They surgically removed my femur bone out of my leg and inserted a 1940s era rod that was fit for a man. So yeah, so eventually, about 2 hours later, they're estimating that I woke up, and I woke up and I remember uh, laying on this bed, but as I came to, I remember seeing these Iraqi men standing over top of me. And of course, I'm 19 years old at this point, and I'm in a foreign country, and these Iraqi men are standing over top of me. I had no memory of what had happened or how I had gotten there. So of course, the first thing I do is try to jump, to jerk, to get away from them. And at that point is when I realized that I couldn't move my right arm as it was broken, and I could not set up or move or feel anything from my waist down. So yeah, so it kind of very scary, and I guess a traumatic time for me.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't imagine the feelings and the thoughts that go through someone's head. Um, but you were in that situation for 9 days, as the story goes, um, and then after 9 days, it seems like the Marines had moved into Nasiriyah a little bit more. and taking a little bit more control of the city. Not complete yet until I think the end of March. Um, well, no, it's about right, about the right time frame. So tell us about how you first saw the first American when you were in that situation, and what kind of feeling that gave you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, again, I was, like you said, I was there for 9 days. And, I had been moved around. I had been taken to the operating room for them to basically, they were at that point was going to amputate my leg because of the first surgery that they had removed my um, femur. So, again, they were going to take me down and amputate it just because of the infection had set in because of that rod that they placed was unsterilized. Um, so yeah, they moved me around, but that night of April 1st, I remember just hearing I don't helicopters and Humvees and larger kind of machinery that I hadn't heard in those past 9 days. So I knew something was about to happen. I just didn't know what. But when I heard men voices in English, and I was actually able to understand it, but outside of the hall, I could hear them yelling, where is Private Lynch? And when I heard that, I knew that I was basically their target, whether this was good or bad. And I think that's kind of really when the fear really set in because of just the unknowns of what was about to happen, and the unpredictability of everything that was occurring at that very moment. But the two Iraqi men that were inside of the room with me, they were led out, and before I knew it, there stood SEALs and Rangers, and I remember at one point one of them standing beside me and ripping the American flag off of his uniform and placing it in my hand and saying, we're Americans and we're here to take you home. And I just remember replying with, yeah, I'm an American soldier too. And yeah, the chaos of getting me out of there and whisking me, to the waiting helicopter was quite amazing.
And one of the soldiers who participated in that rescue, I don't know if he was a sergeant major at the time, but later on he became Command Sergeant Major Martin Barreras, a veteran of many campaigns. He was the team leader in your rescue, from what I understand. But he had also been in Panama, in Haiti, in Iraq, and Afghanistan, obviously. Unfortunately, this hero of our nation, 11 years later, was wounded in Afghanistan and died a few days later of his wounds. Um, do you recall Sergeant Major Barreras during that rescue time, or was it just a mass of people that you didn't know?
Yeah, unfortunately, no, I didn't. I wish that I wish I knew all of them. Um, but of course, at that time, I did meet some of them. I will say that I did get to eventually meet a lot of them, and there are a few that I still stay in contact with today. But it was just such a large, expansive, move that, yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to meet all of them, and unfortunately, he was one of the ones that I don't remember. But yeah, I remember um, I remember his death, and we actually kind of making contact with the family and releasing a statement about our condolences. So
And one of the things you just said that I think every veteran can relate to is those friendships and those relationships that you still have with people you served with many years ago. And there's that special bond between veterans who understand experiences. But as you and I said a few days ago when we were talking, your group is even smaller of veterans with a specific experience and a specific bonding. What other members of the 507th do you still talk to or have contact with or run into from time to time?
Yeah. So PNWs obviously are former repatriated, I should say. Those are the big ones just because we get to meet every year and for Lori's memorial. And, like we had talked about with COVID, we haven't been able to see the family, but hopefully this March, if all goes well, we can get back out there and see them. But definitely Shoshana Johnson, Joe Hudson, Patrick Miller. Those are the three that we kind of go out and make sure that we kind of still keep that uh, contact and base with each other. Because you're right, we uh, unfortunately we went through this ordeal, and as traumatic as it was, it's nice to be able to talk to each other and know that they understand exactly what each one of us was going through, even though it was different for each one of us. But the circumstances was kind
Yeah,
of the
so
same.
I think the story that we just went through of the movement, the capture, the rescue, a lot of people know that story just from from watching the news, and a lot of people were captivated by it. Um, but now I'd like to get into part of the story that maybe not a lot of people know about, right? Is your discharge from the military. And we just passed that anniversary as well. On July 22nd, 18 years ago, you were discharged from the Army, um, and moved into that veteran status where, oh no, I got to deal with the VA. Right? And we all have the story about interactions with the VA. But um, so tell us about your initial recovery. I know you went to college afterwards, after a while, but when you first got out, how was that transition from, your military life to now a veteran?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that was probably the hardest part because I felt kind of like what most, I should say most, I guess, most veterans feel that they don't have a place. They don't know what to do with their lives. This is kind of all they really known was the military life. And even though mine was very short lived, again, I joined in 2001, was discharged in 2003. Um, but I still felt that kind of sense because at that point, I only looked at myself as kind of this broken soldier. I didn't know what else to do with myself. To kind of give you guys a rundown, and I had the head laceration. My right arm was broken, the back was broken. So there's a rod, a cage in my back. I had a couple or cracked ribs. Um, they did go back in, the Americans, I guess, just say, did go back in. We replaced the rod in my femur. I have a rod in the tibia, and then my right foot is held together with pin screws and rods, and actually is fused on the top of it. So therefore, quite a few years, and actually I'm still kind of dealing with the injuries, but the kind of first initial when you get out is, now what? And again, it was that broken soldier kind of feeling that I felt of, I don't know how to mend my life from here. But thankfully, they put me through physical therapy. I had a great physical therapist. And once I was able to kind of get around good enough on my own is when I decided, you know what, I got to do something else with my life. And I chose to go back to school, get my elementary education degree. And again, remember, that's what I wanted to do when before I joined the military. So I was able to get that. And then I went on and continued and got my master's degree. And so, yeah, I mean, I think to kind of follow up on, I guess, on what you're saying is, um, I had a wonderful support system, not only with the VA, not only with the physical therapist, but my family, my community, you know, hometown, and I think that's what kind of helped me through the PTSD period, through that depression mode of I want to get better.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that your goal for joining the Army was to get, a college education and become a teacher. And even though your military service was not what you expected, when you were discharged, you stuck to those goals, right? And you went to college and you got your education, a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. Um, what was it like going to college? You went to West Virginia University, is that correct? Or University of West Virginia? I forget which one. How do you say
Yeah,
it?
so I started out there. It was it was it was a change. I will say that. I mean, I think anytime you go from what I was experiencing and then trying to move into college lifestyle, it was hard. It was definitely a change of, you know, being back on campus with a bunch of 18-year-old freshmen versus at that time I think I was 22, 23. So it was a huge it was a huge transition to kind of get used to, but um, I
I,
decided to kind of transition back into a smaller community college and finish there. It was kind of
I
more my speed at that point.
I would imagine that even though you were 22, 23, your level of maturity was probably a lot higher than your age, given, what you'd been through and other 22-year-olds who probably not only didn't go through it, but just couldn't even relate to it, right? And we're still trying to live the college life and becoming adults. Where my impression is you became an adult at the age of 19, and that's when, um, you get a whole different perspective on the world. Yes, your recruiter told you would travel, and you did travel, and you saw the world. And at 22, 23, I think your maturity level was probably closer to 45 or 50. But then in 2007, you, I hope I got the year right, you became a mother to a beautiful daughter, Dakota Ann, right?
I did, yeah.
And the
Um,
name and the name Ann, as we saw earlier, came from Lori Ann Piestewa, correct?
yeah, well, that and her grandma, her middle name is Anne as well. So it kind of had a twofold of why we named her that. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was, kind of being able to have still that close bond with Lori without naming her Lori. So I wanted to be able to honor Lori in a special way, so that she's always a part of me. And she always will be. But, I think it's kind of like when people name their children after grandparents or special people. And Lori was definitely a special person to me.
And you're a teacher now, correct? Which was the goal from the beginning, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I love it. I love being in the classroom. I love being able to, I don't know, there's just something about that goal that had always stuck with me that I don't know. I just love it. I think that's kind
What
of
age
was
group
my
are your
calling
students?
and where I needed to be.
What age group are your students?
Well, I'm a substitute right now, so I get to handle them all and I love it. I absolutely love just, everything from the kindergartners to the seniors. And but obviously my heart kind of sticks with the younger ones. That's always what I wanted to do. So, I tend to gravitate more to the younger elementary students.
So being a teacher by heart and being and having a daughter with a very meaningful name, have you had time to really explain to her the lineage of her name, and has she appreciated the history of it all?
Yeah, actually, she knows all about it. We show her pictures all the time about when we took her out to uh, Arizona, Phoenix, and they blessed her with a Hopi name. So she actually does have a Hopi name to go along with it. But yeah, she understands. She knows. I don't know. I mean, she's 14 now, but she's at a great age of understanding everything that happened to me. But I think it'll hit her probably a little bit later in life when she can actually appreciate it. Like she understands it, but I don't know that she fully appreciates the meaning behind Lori, but also just everything that occurred.
It's hard to appreciate history at the age of 14. I'm sure it'll come. I've always told people we appreciate history when things that we live through start to show up in the history books. And that's when we really have that connection. Um, and I think people in Hawaii can relate to Lori and the Hopi people because it is a native indigenous people with connections to the land and connections to the environment. And I understand that there's now a mountain peak named Peak Paestawa in Arizona, which is an amazing tribute to this amazing woman. Um,
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's in Phoenix. So, and that's where we meet every year to do her memorial. And it's not just. I mean, obviously, it is about her, but her family has been so amazing that we now honor all of Arizonans that have been killed in the war. So from every branch, not just from the Army, but every branch. And so, I mean, it has became bigger, and I guess in my mind, it's become better because it's not only honoring Lori, but all.
One of the things that I really admire about your story is how you like to shed the light on other people, not necessarily all on yourself. Lori being one of them, and the other members of your unit. And I read something about your parents saying when the time when you were captive, and they kept asking your parents, news media always asking all kinds of questions. Your parents like to focus their hopes and prayers on the entire unit and other members of your unit, and not just yourself. And that's quite remarkable for parents who have a child in that situation and their thoughts are on the other members of the unit. Is that something that your parents have kind of instilled in you as thinking about others before yourself?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that's just how I was raised. But I don't know. I mean, I just assume that's how everyone is. That is the way that we are, and that's the way I was raised. But I know that even with Lori, the Paesta were kind of the same way. They were when they were told, well, I guess when everyone was told that one of us had made it and one of us had not. And I mean, obviously, they wanted it to be Lori that made it, but they were very hopeful that it was me, because that's the kind of people that they are too. So yeah, I mean, I think when you just have such a close bond with people who like that you didn't grow up knowing, but yet get to serve with their daughter and get to meet them, and it just takes on a beautiful bond and friendship even with her family.
Yeah. So you joined the army with a goal. You did your army service. You came out, achieved those goals, um, but you were still not done helping others. Tell us about Jesse's Pals.
Yeah, so Jesse's Pals is something that I'm so proud about. So when like you said, when I came home, one of the things that I wanted to do was be able to give back to children. So I was able to start this organization. It is at West Virginia University Children's Hospital, but um, for me, I knew how it felt to be in the hospital. And even though I was 19 years old, I wanted that, I don't know, comfort, something to hang on to. And I know it kind of sounds crazy of being 19 and you wanted, you know, some kind of hope or some, some physical thing that you can hang on to. So I kept thinking, what can we do for the children? And if I was 19 and wanted that, I couldn't possibly imagine being, a child, you know, throwing out numbers, 5, 6, 7-year-old child, and how scared that they must be. And so we started up Jesse's Pals in hopes to get donations of stuffed animals, blankets, toys. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been a huge success. Unfortunately, with COVID, we haven't been able, I guess I should say, we haven't been able to donate just because of, making sure everything is sterilized. But yeah, it was an organization that I'm very, very proud of that we were able to start and continue.
That's great. Hopefully we'll get through this pandemic soon, and we can get Jesse's Pals back up and running in full speed. And the Hawaii Veterans Foundation will be proud to help you in any way we can to get that going again. I want to remind our audience the Q&A tool is available, and there is a question. So I'm going to ask this question for you, Jessica. Um, it says, has Jessica been invited as a guest to the Grafton, West Virginia Memorial Day Parade, U.S. National Cemetery in May? Since she's been home, and it is his question was submitted by John Bartlett, and this is his hometown.
I have actually, yeah, I was there a couple years ago. So for the ones that do not know, Grafton is one of the largest Memorial Day parades that we have here in West Virginia. So it was definitely an honor to be a part of that.
Great, great. And I'm sure that you know, when events come around like this one, people are contacting you, and we hope that you can continue. I want to ask you, so you are considered a hero by many people, and even though you don't consider yourself a hero, I want to ask you, who are your heroes and who are your role models?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Lori and the rest of my comrades, because even though I speak mainly about Lori, but that's because I was closest to her. But yes, there were 10 others who were killed. So I definitely am not leaving anybody out by any means. When I do in-person speeches, I am able to play PowerPoints with each one of the soldiers. But, obviously Lori, spending every day with her, again, we were roommates, so I was in the barracks with her every day. But yeah, I mean, I think just again, those those are my heroes, the ones who were able to come in to rescue me, to put their life on the line. The Iraqi lawyer, his family. I mean, there's so many that honestly I look up to, but and there's been so many positive influences in my life since I have returned that it's kind of almost impossible to thank everyone or to mention them as being my role models or people that I adore. But yeah, I think to, I guess, to answer your question, it would be the ones who were in my unit, the ones that were able to come in and rescue me, and obviously my parents and family.
Yeah, it's. I read a quote of yours that really, for some reason, it just stayed with me, and it's from 2007. It says, "I'm the same person I was when I joined the army. I'm just a lot stronger now." And that could be true for many people, right? You join the military, you come out stronger, but um, in your specific terms, in your specific situation, that quote, how do, kind of explain a little bit, if you can, where is your source of strength and where does your motivation come from?
Yeah. So, and actually, I mean, I can even go back to kind of 2003 during the ambush, and being alone and being, I mean, I guess, I mean, because okay. I obviously there were Iraqis there with me present, but when I say alone, I mean I was the only soldier from my unit. I was the only American there, so I wasn't able to communicate. I wasn't able to talk to anybody. I had only myself to rely on. Even with the Iraqis, there was that language barrier of not being able to communicate. So I think definitely that's kind of when it really hit me the most of, what, if I'm going to make it out of here, that I have to be able to persevere. I have to keep going and build up that strength. And that's kind of what I had to do. You know what I mean? Because every day that was passing, um, to kind of, I guess, give you a little bit of backstory too with this. But when I was rescued, I weighed about 87 pounds, so a little under 90 pounds, from not being able to eat, not, I guess just all the trauma. Um, yeah, I mean, all of that stuff. But I just felt there were times when I just felt my life was kind of slipping, if that makes sense. I mean, I didn't know how much longer that I could take physically and mentally, being alone and laying there with all of these injuries, not knowing if I would ever see my parents or my family or my community or, my comrades ever again. And I think that's one of the hardest things that I had to deal with, was that mental kind of blocking of, you know, no, you're not strong enough, but yet I knew that I was. It was just that kind of mentality of, I don't know if I can do this.
It's a testament to the phrase of, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? We do have a question that came in from Ann R. It's a statement and a question. So Ann R says, I read your book in the past several days, and I think you are quite brave. No one knows just what they will do if thrown in a situation like that, and you were brave. Thank you for your service. So do you belong to any veterans groups, is the question.
I do not, actually. I mean, I have, I guess, been invited to participate in like VFWs, that kind of situation, but not really, I guess, actively into anything. No.
Okay. And then another question from Mark. How did your military training prepare or did not prepare you um, as a POW? And what was the hardest thing you endured as a POW?
Yeah. So I'm gonna say, I mean, obviously we did not train to be captured. Um, there's always, basic training, you go through all that training, but I don't I don't think that anything would have prepared me for what I initially went through. Um, I guess because I was not able to get up, to move, to, I was stationary. I was, not anywhere that they moved me, they had to move me. Um, so it wasn't like I could run or escape or hide or um, get out of there on my own. I was literally at the hands of them. So I think that even if we had trained for that, I don't know how much it would have helped me. I mean, maybe mentally, but again, once you are in that kind of situation and um, it's basically mental and getting yourself through it as much as you possibly can. Because again, like you said, everyone's going to handle the situation differently. And for me, I handled it the best that I could, and that was just self talks, praying, and doing whatever I could to, just get me to the next day.
Yeah. Earlier, I showed a slide of pictures of you, and there was an 18-year-old Jessica, and there was the today Jessica. If you can go back and talk to that 18-year-old Jessica, what would you tell her?
Honestly, I don't know that I would change anything. I would hope that there would be different outcomes, especially with the ambush, but um I don't know that I would really change anything personally. I mean, because I think everything that I have gone through has what built or led up to who I am today. And I think that's just part of growing and getting older and like you said, wiser and more mature is going through all of these trials and tribulations and um, learning as you go. So um, yeah, I mean, other than probably the outcome, I wish that you know I hadn't been injured so badly that so I wasn't in pain today. But I would still go through the pain if I could bring back my friends, my comrades. So I don't I don't know. I think it has made me who I am today, and unfortunately I can't turn back time or change anything.
We're going to be wrapping up soon, so I just want to remind our audience, if you have questions, just submit them through the Q&A. Um, Jessica, tell me about um, your experience with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Transitioning, we spoke about this earlier. Transitioning from military to civilian life is always a challenge. Um, I would hazard a guess that you never got the letter saying that your conditions are not service connected. But many veterans do get letters like that. Do you have any advice for veterans who are dealing with issues, whether they be mental or physical, and the strength that it takes to reach out and ask for help when you need it?
Yeah, I mean that I think that's one of the biggest thing is making sure that you do reach out, document everything. I have literally diaries, logs and logs of paperwork that I keep everything kind of written down. But I'm also one of these people that if I'm hurting, you will never know that I'm hurting. I will never tell you that I'm in pain or that I need to lie down or that you know, I physically can't do anything. I'm just one of those people that will never say that. But when it came to the VA and making sure that they knew when I was hurting or when I needed to switch my medicine or things like that, that is when I did speak up. So thankfully, I have never really had to press the VA for any further investigations or making sure that they kept up on things. So I guess on that part, I'm thankful that I've never really had to seek them. But yeah, I did. I have a close connection with my doctors, so I'm able to tell them if this medicine's not working, or if I had a bad dream, or if my PTSD or my depression is spiking up. So I think just communicating with your doctors is going to be one of the main things that I can tell people to do is ensure that you you talk to your doctor.
And you were, you were raised in a small town and you still live in that small town. So most of your care is considered like non-VA community care. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, everything's kind of outsourced to, you know, physicians around my community.
I did have a couple of questions pop up. One is says, well, no question, but just a thank you for Jessica for your service and sharing your life with us. Best of aloha to you. And then we had a question um, about your pain level. 18 years have passed, and the question is, are you still in constant pain? And what has been most helpful in dealing with the pain level? And the last question, kind of private. It's it's just asking about your disability rating, so you don't have to answer that if you don't want to, because that's personal medical question. But really, how do you deal with the pain? It's been 18 years. I'm sure you've come up with, or not come up with, but you've developed some coping mechanisms. How has that worked out?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think having that constant communication with my physician definitely helps. But yeah, I definitely struggle with pain every single day. I mean, um, again, most of it has to stem from my back where it was broke, but also my right foot. So I struggle with walking long distances or, going up and down hills because I also wear a um, 90-degree uh, leg brace from where I have drop foot. So if you're familiar with drop foot, you cannot lift your foot up and down uh, like you would. um, so I have that. So I have to wear a brace also, and then of course orthotics into the right foot. But I think just changing the way that I walk, um, again dealing with the back injury, that those are things that just don't go away. And even though if I were to stand up and walk, you may notice a little bit of a limp, but underneath everything is where kind of, as they say, where everything kind of lies. But yeah, I mean, I manage it by doing the best that I can and not overdoing it, I think is kind of the best answer for that. But I do take Lyrica, which is a prescription drug that um, I guess that it's considered like the pins and needle filling that it's most described by like people with diabetes, I guess, that they feel. So that's kind of my biggest like aggravation, I guess, is constantly feeling that and it never going away. So I take the medicine, it kind of lessens, but ibuprofen, Excedrin, and not overdoing it, knowing my limits, I guess.
Well, being an Army veteran, you probably take the 800 milligram Motrin, right?
Drink water.
Water, exactly, exactly. And another question or comment from Mark. It says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just got on. First of all, thank you for your service and sacrifice, and those who paid the ultimate price. You might have shared this already, but were you able to use your weapon in defense? And did the Iraqi soldiers respect you as a woman, given their culture of how they treat women? Anybody who's been in Iraq knows that the sand goes everywhere and gets into everything. So, um, tell us about your weapon and how that functioned."
Yeah, so actually that is one of the biggest, and I apologize because we kind of skipped over a lot of the leading up to the actual ambush. But yeah, so when the ambush had occurred, again, we had Lori's M16, my M16, my first sergeant's M16, his M9, and then the two soldiers with me had, I believe they had 249. Um, but out of all of those, every single weapon had jammed except for the two soldiers. So yeah, unfortunately, mine wasn't the only one jammed. I mean, we tried every single one in that vehicle to try to shoot back to defend ourselves, and unfortunately, none of our weapons were
Yeah,
working.
I recall the sand. As soon as you clean your weapon, the sand is right back in there, and it never goes away.
Yeah, and unfortunately for us, I mean, I guess the downfall was just being lost and taking that extra time to figure out where we were going and not taking care of our weapons. I mean, as sad as that is, I mean, we did clean them. Don't get me wrong, we did clean our weapons, but um, our main focus was trying to figure out where we were and where and how to get back to the rest of that convoy. So yeah, I mean, we didn't take as good care as what we probably should have, and ultimately it hurt us.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and sometimes when you speak, people, for whatever reasons, imply that you were to blame for some of the decisions and splitting up the convoy. I think most veterans who understand and have been in the situation know that, the people in charge make decisions based on the information they have at the moment, and it's not a decision that can be deferred to later. You have to make it now, and sometimes they work out and sometimes they don't. Um, and unfortunately, in your situation, it worked out a certain way. Last call for questions because we're going to be wrapping up soon, but I do want to mention, let me share something real quick. Hopefully it'll pop up. I do want to mention, the book was mentioned earlier, and this is the book. It's called I Am a Soldier Too, written by Rick Bragg, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning author. Um, and Jessica, tell us a little bit about the book process and how does, it must be strange reading your life in a book. But how does that process work of thinking, okay, Mr. Bragg contacts somebody and we want to write about this?
Yeah, so so actually before I had even gotten out of the army, so I guess before, for those ones who do not know, you you cannot speak or accept gifts until you are discharged out of the military. So I was not able to give interviews, or at least in my, I guess, circumstances, I was not able to give any interviews. I was basically shielded from the public. Um, Again, I wasn't allowed to have visitors. Well, I guess special visitors that were on a list I was able to see inside of the hospital. So during this time, I kind of got out, and I had this awesome writer, Rick Bragg, who came to our home, and basically within probably 2 months, he had the book written and sent to editors and publishing company, and it was produced and ready for release by November. So it happened extremely fast, given how long books usually take to write. But he did an amazing job with it. And if you guys are not familiar with Rick Bragg, make sure to pick up some of his books, because he is an amazing, talented writer.
Yeah, it's a very powerful read. I've been through the book, and it's an amazing story. And now we know a lot of the truth, and we appreciate your candor in the situation. And I know a lot of stories were brought up by the military PR folks about this grand battle in Nasiriyah, and you felt the need that there's no need to embellish this. It is what it is, and it's a story in itself, and there's no need to add anything to it. So thank you for that. Um, we are coming up on our time, so I do want to mention. Let me see if I can move this forward. I want to thank everybody for participating in all our sessions in our Veterans Summit over the past 6 weeks. and especially AARP, we could not do this without them because they said, first of all, we were going to skip this year because of the pandemic, and AARP said, no, we're not doing that, which is kind of strange because usually it's the military person that says, no, the mission has to keep going regardless of the environment. But it was AARP that said, hey, we're gonna do this. So thank you so much to AARP Hawaii. Jessica, any parting words for Hawaii?
Yeah, well, I guess first, thank you guys so much. It has been an honor and a pleasure, a privilege to be able to speak to you. But yeah, I think just kind of walking away, well, walking away is usually what I say, but I'm sitting here. um, I guess just, you know, we all go through so many obstacles and struggles and, these tribulations in life, these roadblocks that try to stop us and prevent us from living our life to the fullest. So, you know, don't keep persevering. Make sure that you, as cliche as it is, live life to the fullest and dream big, as they say. But in all sincerity, yeah, just make sure that you are living your life and not taking anything for granted, because again, we all go through these struggles every single day, not just me. I'm sure Carlos has experienced so many struggles in his life that you have to keep going and overcome anything that does try to stop you. So again, thank you guys so much for having me, and yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. A quick apology because usually when people want to speak to the Hawaii Veteran Summit, they get to come to Hawaii, and you had to do this from home. And thank you, especially because I know you're on East Coast time, so it's like 11:30 there now. So thank you so much for staying up past your bedtime. And we can tell you're a wonderful human being, and you're still living up to the title of Miss Congeniality that was given to you, a while back. I won't say how long. We've already mentioned it, but thank you so much, and we'll be wrapping up, and we'll be in touch to get you out to Hawaii next time. Thank you very much, Jessica. I appreciate your time.
Thank you guys.
All righty, take care. Bye bye.
Thanks.